Welcome to Managing the College Recruiting Podcast, the show where real coaches guide you through every step of the college athletic recruiting journey. I'm your host, Jeff Four, founder of Next College Athlete. Each week, we break down the recruiting process with practical tips, expert insights, and real-world stories. So if you and your family can take control, avoiding costly mistakes, and make confident decisions about your future. If you're ready to get recruited on your terms with honest advice, you're in the right place. So let's get started with today's episode. Well, welcome back to Next College Athlete Podcast. Again, I'm Jeff Four, current director of athletics at Missouri Baptist University and the founder and director here at Next College Athlete. So if you're a student athlete, a parent, or a coach interested in the college recruiting process, you're in the right place. We're going to talk every week, again, just like we have in previous weeks, all about the recruiting process. We've got a great show tonight. Tonight is all about timing, when to start the recruiting process, why it matters, and how you can avoid some of the most common timing mistakes. So whether you're an eighth grader, a high school senior, or anywhere in between, this episode is going to really help you build a timeline that works for your goals. So let's kind of dig into this. Let's start with, why timing matters. I think that's one of the questions that I get asked all the time as I talk to families and student athletes that are at a different phase in their high school journey or even in junior high. It's like, we want to play in college. We think we're talented enough. When do we get started? When does this whole process begin? So again, that's really the big question. So why does timing matter so much for college recruiting? Well, the answer is really simple. Recruiting is a process. It's not a single event. Coaches are building their rosters years in advance. They're looking at, where they are well down the line. And the earlier you start, the more options you're going to have. Again, as we've said before, this is really all about relationships. And it is a two-way street. It's not just about college coaches necessarily just going out and recruiting the athletes. This is really about you and taking control of this, to making sure that, as we've talked about in the past, identifying the right fit. And is the school going to be the distance from home that I'm going to want? I mean, there's a lot of variables that we've talked about, and we spent a lot of time talking about those last week. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to last week's episode, I definitely recommend you go back and look at that. But really, this process does not have to be stressful, but starting late also doesn't mean it's over. So, if you're in your senior year and you're like, oh my goodness, he's talking about eighth grade and junior high. It's like, I'm a senior and I haven't got recruited. Well, it's never too late. We're just going to have to really accelerate the processes. We've talked about game plan before. Acting with a sense of urgency is incredibly important, especially if you're well down the line. But it really doesn't matter where you are in the process. We're going to go through some of the things that you're going to need to be doing. Of course, if you're an eighth grader, you're a freshman, you've got a little bit more time, and we'll focus on kind of building that recruiting calendar and kind of talking about the specifics of where you are and what you want to be doing. But it doesn't matter where you are in the process. It's, are you doing the right things? So, we'll cover again recruiting calendars. I talked about, how coaches plan the recruiting class, why early exposure helps, but late bloomers can still succeed in the process. Common myths about the right time to start. There are various things out there. But again, it's just really important, regardless of where you are, we're going to want to have some urgency behind the process. So a quick story. I've worked with athletes who have committed as early as sophomore year and others who found their fit as late as, junior college. So there's really no single path, but the earlier you get organized, the better chances you're definitely going to have. Okay. So let's kind of look at the next thing here on the list tonight, and that's recruiting timelines really by sport and division. So let's break down the recruiting timelines for different sports and divisions. Every sport and division really has its own recruiting rhythm. For example, NCAA Division I, coaches start tracking athletes as early as 9th and 10th grade. And to be honest with you, I've seen coaches at some of these big college events, these club events, especially as a former basketball coach, where they were actually down, watching even 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So really, it starts very, very early, but I think a really good timeline is really 9th or 10th grade is where really coaches start to really get serious and active, unless we've got just, an off-the-chart type kid. Many offers are going to go out during the junior year, but again, recruiting starts even earlier in high-profile sports, especially like football and basketball. Those are really big ones. Now, if we shift to NCAA Division II and Division III, the process can start a little bit later. Some of these schools are really trying to kind of weed through this and say, okay, what kids are going to fall on the radar of NCAA Division I schools? Is this a kid that's going to drop to my level? So it can be a little bit later, again, when we're talking about D2 and Division III. Often sophomores or junior year, again, for your Division II and Division III. And Division III coaches might even start to recruit or get a little bit more serious about recruiting into your senior year, because if you remember, Division III schools don't offer athletic scholarships. It's all academic. And so they're really trying to identify who's still out there, who's still available, that I might be able to recruit. So it can even, get a little bit later in the process, especially when we talk about Division III. Now, when we move to NAI and junior colleges, these associations are often more flexible with their timing, specifically because their recruiting calendars don't deny them the ability to really talk to student athletes, to get out and watch kids play. They don't have to worry about contact periods, dead periods, evaluation periods. So they've got a little bit more flexibility. And many athletes, especially for NAI and junior colleges, are going to commit during their senior year or even after graduation. Being at an NAI school, we will pick up a large number of student athletes, especially on the back end of our roster, sometimes as late as July. I can give you an example. When I was coaching at my last school, when I was still coaching, before I moved to Missouri Baptist University, I was coaching women's basketball. And we literally, in our first year that I was there in the program, we had 2 young ladies that actually came for a campus visit during move-in weekend. They really liked the opportunity. We offered them a scholarship, and they turned around and went home, got their stuff, and were back on Sunday with classes starting on Monday. So you talk about late, and that's why I encourage, no matter where you are in the process, it's never too late. We've just got to make sure we're doing the right things, and we've got a sense of urgency. So as again, we talk about timing and how great it is to start in 8th grade, 9th grade, and get your ducks in a row. If you're in your senior year and don't have anything, it doesn't mean you're dead in the water. So I wouldn't necessarily to worry about that. When we talk about sport-specific differences, for example, baseball and softball, recruiting can start very, very early. Just a few years ago, we saw a 6th grader that actually committed to the University of Florida in softball. So really, really early. While track and field and swimming, we're going to see later commitments. And really because it's all time-based, the 100-meter dash or the breaststroke, wherever you're at, really that comes down to timing. And so athletes mature over their high school years. And so a lot of athletes on the track side and also in swimming, we'll see a lot of coaches that'll wait because, again, they're waiting to see what kind of times that these individuals will throw up. So, again, just kind of some differences from a sports-specific side. So a big tip, research your sports' recruiting rules and key dates. The NCAA, the NAIA, and NJCA all publish calendars with contact periods, evaluation periods, signing dates. And one of the things that I highly want to recommend, especially as you're kind of getting started, is if you want to head over to nextcollegeathlete.com, I've built a 12-module course that literally walks you through the entire recruiting process. We talk about everything that I talk about on these podcasts. It's a one-time purchase. It's available to you for life. So if you got a couple of kids in the house, if you're a parent, you're looking at this like, hey, we're not only going through this process once, we're going to go through it twice. That is a really good opportunity to go in and look at that 12 module course. So I encourage you to get over to Next College Athlete, and we provide all of those recruiting calendars for you. So it's actually embedded into the course. You can download them. We got sports specific information in there against, some of the parameters that baseball coaches are looking for and track coaches are looking for and football coaches are looking for, but the recruiting calendar's there. So you might want to run over and check that out, because that's a great opportunity to get really a plethora of information that's available to you. And again, it's a 12 module course. I built that out over my years of coaching and helping families. Next thing I want to talk about tonight is really our early starters versus what we call the late bloomers. So let's talk about the pros and cons of starting early versus starting late. So if we're looking at early starters, you're going to have more options. There's just going to be more options out there. You've got more time to build relationships, and there's less stress about deadlines. But early recruiting can also mean there's more pressure and the risk of peaking too soon or choosing a school before you're really ready. Especially with as many coaching changes that we have. And, we want to sit back and we want to say, well, choose a college because of the school. Don't choose it because of the coach. That's all great in theory, but we also know that the relationship piece is so important. And so, when you're going through this process, especially in an early, what are the chances of the college coach actually being there when you graduate? We hope it's great. But again, that's one of the things that can kind of affect, this kind of whole process. So that's kind of from the early starter standpoint. From a late bloomer standpoint, maybe you switch sports. Maybe you're trying to figure out like, hey, I was a volleyball player when I started out, but I've really kind of blossomed in track. And we just talked about how late track is. And so, that's going to kind of play into this thing. But again, maybe you switch sports. Maybe you grew late. Maybe you grew 5-6 inches or something like that. All of a sudden between your junior and senior year, or you just realize that your potential. Those things happen all the time. So it's never too late to start. And the key is to be organized, to be very proactive, and be open-minded about your options. And that includes junior college and small programs. Again, we've talked about the transfer portal in previous, episodes, and talked about how that has just so impacted college recruiting. And again, college coaches, especially at the Division I level anymore, are not recruiting as many high school freshmen. I hate to break it to you, but their livelihood is tied up into student athletes and being successful. And we're talking about high school athletes that unproven academically. We know they've got to develop the strength, the speed of the game, and college is a lot more. And so from a college coach's perspective, I'd rather go get an athlete that in a sense is proven academically and athletically, has played some competition at that level. Again, that's just an easier deal for me. So, as a freshman, if you're not a 5-star and you're not getting recruited by Division I schools, you definitely want to look at junior colleges. You definitely want to look at NAI schools. It doesn't mean it has to be your final destination. We see kids that transfer up all the time because now you become a proven commodity because you've done things academically, you've got film, you're all conference, maybe you're an NAI All-American, and you'll have some Division I opportunities if that's your goal. So it doesn't mean that you have to give up on the dream if you don't have any Division I offers. It just means you might need to look at a smaller school, and that might be the best option for you. And then you might get to a smaller school and find out, like, this is great. Like, I'd rather be a big fish in a small pond than, take a chance on going to Division I school and maybe not playing as much as I'd like to. So again, really, really important things to remember. So, I was once working with a soccer player who didn't even make varsity until their junior year. And this is a great story. But, really by focusing on the highlight videos and targeted outreach and really identifying the best academic fit, she landed a spot at a great NCAA Division III school. And it's just because that really she was flexible, she was open to opportunities, she was very persistent, and all of those things paid off. So again, doesn't matter where you are in the process, staying after it, staying flexible, staying persistent is going to be, really, really important. So let's move on to the next segment here, and that's really building your personal recruiting calendar. Now, let's get practical. Here's how to build a recruiting calendar for your specific grade and our sport. So if you're listening to this tonight, either as a parent or a student athlete, 8th, 9th grade, this is where we really want to focus on academics. You want to start building that athletic resume. I brought up before how important an online presence is. That's really critical. So, where could a college coach go right now and find all of your information, including your highlight videos? That's what's really important. So starting to build that athletic resume is really great. Attending camps and clinics, this is really a good time to start doing that. It's a great time to get on the radar of college coaches, and they do that through camps. They'll invite, to a camp. You got an opportunity to get in front of coaches and get seen, and really start beginning to research schools. One of the other things we talk about in a game plan is the importance of a target list of schools that are a fit. And we talk about academic fit. We talk about athletic fit. We talk about a financial fit, because not everybody's going to get a full ride. In fact, most individuals do not get full rides, especially if you move on to lower levels. And then socially, is it a good fit? So starting to research and identify what your best fit schools are going to be is really going to kind of help you narrow this down. Let's look at 10th grade. So, in 10th grade, this is where we're really going to want to update our highlight video. We're going to want to start to attend showcases, and this is where you're going to want to start contacting coaches, and also you want to remain focused on your academics. So we talk about being proactive communicator. This is when you really want to start communicating and reaching out to college coaches. There are, again, if you look at the timelines of when college coaches can start emailing and calling and texting, it varies by division level, especially from Division I down. And so if you call a college coach, regardless of the situation, regardless of when they can start contacting you and they happen to answer a phone, that's a situation where you can have a communication. And I get famous all the time. Well, how does that work? If college coaches can't call me and can't really talk to me, like, how am I supposed to get through to them? So I'll give you a tip. Have your coach call a program of interest, especially if you're a Division I athlete, want to have a conversation at a Division I school. Have your coach reach out or send an email to a college program or to a college coach, and just be frank with the college coach. Hey, I've got a high level, student athlete that would really like to have a discussion with you. Would you mind giving me your phone number, and can I go ahead and set up a time? And a lot of times I used to do this, because I had coached at the Division I level, is that coaches would be like, yeah, sure, here's my cell phone number, and, I'll be available between 6 and 7 tomorrow night. Have them give me a call. And then the student athlete can reach out to the college coach. If the college coach answers, you can start to have a conversation about recruiting. So if you are the initiator, regardless of NCAA rules, those conversations can happen. So good information to remember. As we move into, the 11th grade, this is where you're really going to want to ramp up communication. You're going to want to start to schedule unofficial visits. You want to narrow your target list. You want to make sure that you're registering for the NCAA and the NAI Eligibility Center. Again, if you, and I don't want to keep pushing it, but if you want all of the inside information on the Eligibility Center and that, the 12 module course, we have all that. So all the information we're talking about tonight is available to you in that course. So if you want to jump over again to nextcollegeathlete.com and check that out. And I walk through and show you what's all in the 12 modules so you can see that. But the Eligibility Center becomes an important piece, especially if you don't know if you're going to go to an NCAA or NAI school. You're going to want to sign up for both of those. As we move into 12th grade, this is where you're really going to finalize applications. You're going to schedule your official visits. You get 5 of them at the Division I level. Then you're going to want to respond to offers. You're going to want to keep coaches really updated on your progress. And then as we move into junior college and or post-grad, which is kind of a new commodity, post-grad programs, we see those especially in basketball all over the place. This is an opportunity for you to likely reopen your recruiting. You're going to use new game film. You're going to want to start probably targeting different programs that are still seeking players. So it's almost like if you do decide to go to a junior college, which again is a great option, really you're going to go through this process again, and you're going to reopen your recruiting from that side of it. So again, that's kind of building it out. And again, just kind of a little bit of a tip, use a spreadsheet or some kind of recruiting management tool to kind of track your deadlines. Again, we have an online presence. We've built out an incredible platform on Next College Athlete. We literally charge $10 a month to go in there. You can stop at any time, no contracts, but it really is, it's complete. I mean, you can put all of your academic information, all of your athletic information. You can put unlimited highlight videos up there. It's got a college coach database. So you can research every college school in the country. Every college coach's email and phone number is in there. So if you want one-stop shop to build that online presence and to keep track of some of this stuff that you're going to need to keep track of, and then be able to link that out to college coaches, you can share it through your social media. You can copy the links and send it in an email. We've got that as well. So you might want to take a look at that if you don't have an online presence. Don't have to use us. There's tons of options. If you're really high tech and you want to build your own website, go for it. There's a lot of great options with that. But we do have that system, that online, that recruit management system that you can obviously tap into as well if you don't have that set up. And that's going to be really an important thing. So what if you're behind? What if you're in that senior year and, now we're sitting here the 8th of October and I haven't done any of this. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm really behind. And it's like, oh, how do I even do this? So no worries. As I've talked about, it's, you don't need to worry about if you're late to the game. Trust me, you're not alone. And here's what to do if you're a senior and you're just really starting out. So first of all, we want to be very realistic about your options, and you want to focus on programs that are still recruiting athletes at your position. This is where a target list even becomes more critical. So while you want to identify schools that are an academic fit and a financial fit, knowing that maybe the full ride is off the table, especially if you're a senior this late, but you also want to make sure that that program is recruiting or has spots open at your position, regardless of what sport. So that becomes a major focus. You want to leverage your academics. Many schools are going to want strong student athletes, especially late in the cycle. It's also going to give you an opportunity to tap into some more academic scholarships, especially if you're targeting schools like Division III that are primarily all academic and don't have athletic scholarships. And even if you go to NAIA school, they're going to reward you for good academics. So it can really help you kind of close that gap from a financial perspective. The next thing you want to do is you're going to want to reach out to junior colleges, NAIA schools, and Division III schools. Again, let's be realistic. If you're late in the game and Duke has not called, UCLA has not called, Oregon has not called, you have not got letters from them, chances are they've already have their recruiting list built. Very seldom do we see schools, especially when kids get in their senior year, that just miraculously get recruited to go to high-level Division I's, because those offers have been out again. Those schools start in 8th, 9th grade, 10th grade. Offers usually are out in junior year, and then really it's kind of winding down. So let's be realistic. Let's start reaching out to junior colleges. Great option. NAIA schools, Division III. Let's go have some academic success. Let's go have some athletic success. And it doesn't mean we can't jump division levels if we prove ourselves both academically and athletically. And then you're going to want to send updated film and transcripts as soon as possible. Again, proactive communication is going to become really important, especially if you are late in the game. So really big. And remember, coaches fill rosters all the way through summer. I gave you an example, of the last, position I was at where I was, still coaching, and, we had two young ladies that literally came on move-in day and then went home and ended up coming back and joining our program. So this doesn't stop. And so you just got to be proactive, because there is still time. And if you need more guidance and direction, again, I keep referencing Next College Athlete. That's what we're here for. Not just running these podcasts and providing free, great recruiting information, but if you're like, listen, I'm going to need more help, that's what we're here for. As a former college coach, coach and a whole network of former college coaches that, work for Next College Athlete. Our goal is to make sure that you have everything you need and not pouring thousands and thousands of dollars into recruiting service. I only want to help you with what you need help with. I don't want to get carried away and give you stuff you don't need, because my goal is for you to maximize your ability, get to the highest level you can play, understand how to manage this process, and, then obviously get to college. So what about family roles and communication? So, parents and families play a huge role in the recruiting timeline. They're there for support. Mom and dads that are listening to this, your athlete needs you. They're going to want your guidance. I know at the end of the day, as a parent who's been through this process as well, this is his or her decision, but you're going to need to support your athlete. Let them lead the communication with coaches. Coaches want to hear from the athletes. They don't want to hear from mom and dad. It's okay, mom, if you want to ask questions on a visit, that you're going to look at, how safe is it and what kind of support academically. Those are fine, but really let your son or daughter lead this communication with coaches. Check in regularly, help track deadlines and encourage independence. This is a time to, cut the umbilical cord. You need to start allowing them to have some independence and kind of start to get out there. And remember, the goal is really to prepare your athlete for life after high school, not just the next 4 years, into college and then into their career. And this is where they can start establishing some independence. So be that support mechanism, be there to help them. They're going to need your guidance and direction, but let them lead this process, and especially on communication with college coaches. So what are some action steps? So let's wrap up with some serious action steps really to kind of get going. So first of all, head over to Next College Athlete. We've got a great free resource that you can go ahead and register for. It's an ebook. It's going to walk you through a lot of things. In our course, we've got some free recruiting checklists. I'm going to throw the recruiting checklist up on the website here in the next couple of days, just to kind of give you, on top of the recruiting ebook that we have up there. I'm going to put the checklist up there, at least an overall checklist. So some things that we talked about tonight, you'll kind of understand and what you need to be doing. Build your personal recruiting calendar. Write down those key dates and goals for your specific grade. Remember, we went over all of those, 8th, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, junior college, post-grad programs. So make sure you're building out that recruiting calendar. You're writing down key dates and your goals for your grade. Talk with your family and coaches about your timeline and next steps. Lean on your high school coach as well. Allow them to help you. They can guide and direct you. Most high school coaches have relationships with college programs. As college coaches, we use high school coaches as a great reference for, who's in your program that might be effective at our level. But you talk to your family and your coaches really about your timeline and your next steps. And then check out the links to the NAIA, the NCAA, and the NJCAA recruiting calendars. Again, we've included those in our course. You can go on and you can dig them up. You're just going to have to do a little bit of research, but it's really important that you kind of understand, especially if you're looking at, D2, D1, what those recruiting calendars look like. So sometimes there's dead periods. And so it's not that the college coaches forgot about you. It's not that he doesn't like you anymore. It's simply that he's in a dead period and there can't be any communication. So that kind of changes things, and a lot of times, athletes really don't understand that. If you've got questions, email me, info@nextcollegeathlete.com. I love to get emails. I love to answer emails. You can go to my website again, nextcollegeathlete.com. You can hit the contact up in the top right, and email address is there. Give me a call. Send me a DM on social media. I recommend you go follow me on social media. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Listen, we're here to help. It just tears me up to see a talented college athlete not get an opportunity to play in college because they simply didn't know what to do. And again, for somebody who worked at NCSA and we used to charge families thousands of dollars, that used to kill me. This is a process you can do on your own. Yes, I have tools and resources that are available, but you get to pick and choose what you want. And if you don't need anything, great. because I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I just want to make sure you have all of the guidance and all of the things that you need to know, And again, that's why I started this podcast. So, hey, thanks for tuning in to the Next College Athlete podcast. Remember, the best time to start is now. Don't wait, no matter where you are in the journey. I'm Jeff Four, again, current athletic director at Missouri Baptist University, founder and director at Next College Athlete, and I'll see you next Wednesday as we talk about evaluating your athletic level and finding your best fit. Don't forget, again, to subscribe, share the show with your teammates or your parents who need it, and I hope all of you have a great week.